I do want to talk about the Rockets, though, because they look so good. We all sat on the show yesterday. Mike, you said you thought Utah was the game that the streak would end at. CP3 taking ankles, their 13th straight win. Now, Houston becomes only the 8th team since the merger with 2 different 13-game win streaks in a season. And that is important because 4 of those 8 teams ended up winning a title this season. We have watched the Rockets seem to creep closer and closer to the Warriors through the season, right? Would this work? Oh, yeah, it is working. Hey, it's working really well. Where are we now, Mike, to you, and how close these teams are?
We're close. I mean, I think, to me, the Rockets winning 13, to me, everything is where they're seated at the end. They have to win the Western Conference to have a chance to beat Golden State. They have to. And the question's been asked is how important is these 13-game win streak? It's everything. It's everything because if they want a chance to beat Golden State, they have to do it at home. And so they have to obviously win the West.
Boy, Mike, I was feeling good about our pick of the Jazz when they were up 15 in the first half yesterday. This was the most impressive win for me for the Rockets this season. Mike D'Antoni said essentially the same thing last night. They had 33 points 22 minutes into this game. They're playing the second night of a back-to-back in Utah without 3 rotation players, including Clint Capella, who's very important to them. Utah was defending like madmen early in that game. And for the Rockets to figure out how to win, not only win, but win going away so that the last seconds of the game could be Chris Paul dribbling out and high-fiving with James Harden's mom. That is a championship-type performance. And I know that Utah isn't, the 86 Celtics, but under the circumstances, with no Ryan Anderson, no Eric Gordon, nor Clint Capella, Utah really wanted to win that game. I was extraordinarily impressed. And they did it in a game where they shut down Donovan Mitchell. They took a team on their home court in a tough place to play. The fans were into it, and they just did a really good job of. That's how you win a road playoff game. You've been a part of a lot of those. You to death.
Grind them out.
And that's what it was.
They're doing all the small things that we had the questions about this team going into the season. And what you said to me is the most impressive thing about that win.
Yeah, and look, their odds have gone down. I think Kevin Pelton had on ESPN.com that the Rockets' odds to win a title a few months ago were 16-1. Now they're 2-1. Obviously, the Warriors are the ones who have the best odds for that. But
what's Anthony Davis's odds to win the MVP? I'd like to see what those are, as long as we're looking those up.
They're not as good as James Harden. All right, I want to get to the Mavericks. We've been, of course, following the story there. Former Chief Diversity Officer and Vice President of Human Resources at AT&T. Her name is Cynthia Marshall, and she was introduced as the Mavericks interim CEO. She's jamming to Ain't No Mountain High Enough in that clip. She said that's her song. They put it out there at the game for her, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. She is such a super impressive woman. I have to say, she is no nonsense. She went to the Mavericks staff. She outlined 3 primary areas of focus. She wants to address the franchise's issues with an independent investigation, cultural transformation, she's calling it, and operational effectiveness. Mike, she says she wants to be the model. How do you feel? Do you think she can really do this? Do you think she can clean up the Mavs? Because we've seen the problems there run very deep.
I applaud Cuban for hiring her. I think it's a great hire. First of all, we talked about that off air. I think it's a great hire for him. And yes, I think she can. They know what problems need to be addressed. Now, you put someone in her, what she's capable of doing in place to do it, she'll check those boxes and make sure it gets back. And Cuban wants that. I mean, it's a big for the NBA. It's big for Dallas Mavericks. It's big for everybody. So they will solve this problem, and it's a great hire.
We don't really know everything that went on in the Mavs organization. We do know that Mark Cuban has admitted mistakes, and he promised to fix it. And doing this is a pretty impressive step in order to do that. And so I give Mark Cuban credit for going out and backing up at least the words that he said immediately after.
Absolutely, and I've said this. Look, we see when situations like this happen and scandals like this happen, sometimes the men who are in power try to deny everything is wrong or say that their point of view is the only valid point of view. Mark Cuban has not done that. He has gone forward and said, I made mistakes. This is a big screw up. We need to fix it. You get credit for that. You don't get a parade for saying I'm sorry after you've got caught. But I do think that this is really a good step forward. I would like to see the rest of the NBA take some of these similar steps too, look at their own organizations and see if they need to make some supplementary hires, because it's not as if in the other 29 teams this isn't going on anywhere else. This is not just a Dallas problem. There's another team in the West, though, I want to talk about, Kawhi Leonard. Now, we were talking on this show last week about Greg Popovich saying he'd be surprised, right, if Kawhi comes back this season. And the point we made is, hey, you know who he's talking to? He's not talking to any of you people out there. He's not talking to the media. He is talking to Kawhi Leonard, who is not with the team, saying, hey, buddy, time is short. You better get back here if you want to play. And guess what? Adrian Wojnarowski and Michael C. Wright reporting, Kawhi Leonard is now back from New York, where he was seeking second and third opinions on his quad injury, plans to resume working with the team, and is targeting a March return. So, Mike, what is the ceiling for them?
This is, to me, is huge news. This is big news. I told myself I was done being amazed of what Coach Popovich and the Spurs could do. But then he does this with Kawhi playing 9 games. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But they know in there, and Pop knows in there, and that's why he's kind of been trolling them a little bit, is that there's a ceiling with with the team they have there now.
Right.
Kawhi Leonard removes that ceiling. He doesn't say he can win it, but I'll tell you right now, you put an elite player, top five. We were talking about him being MVP candidate coming this year.
Are they in the race for the Western Conference Championship?
They are. They are in the race. They are in the race.
Put that up on the bar.
Will they win it? Will they win it?
This is amazing.
Pop looks great with no beard. This is the most important story in the NBA that we're not paying attention to.
I agree.
The Kawhi.
We talked about it 2 of the last 4 days on the show.
The royal we, as NBA followers. This is an extraordinarily important thing. What happens with Kawhi and the Spurs the rest of the season determines the future, not only of the Spurs, but of the future of a lot of the NBA. Because with Kawhi having a contract issue coming up this summer, extend or not to extend, if they're not on good terms by the end of the year, forgetting what Kawhi actually looks like on the court, if they don't get back together by the end of the year, Kawhi will be on the trade block this summer.
You spent your Hoop Collective podcast on Friday giving out Kawhi Leonard trade scenarios. Did you ever think we would get to that point?
Never.
When have you ever heard of a San Antonio Spur that's drafted there, been such a big part of that? It never happens.
Right.
When have you
Robinson,
heard of
Duncan, Ginobili, Parker.
When have you heard of a Spur leaving for 3 weeks because he doesn't want to train with the team?
You're right.
This is all very strange. There's plenty of time to bring it back together. Pop fired the salvo. Kawhi is now making the peace branch. Now let's see how it goes.
If there's 2 people that can put it back together,
it's Kawhi Leonard.
Yes, it's Pop and Buford. They'll put this thing back together. I will be shocked if he leaves.
So will I.
Interesting. So by now you have surely heard about what Anthony Davis did against Phoenix last night. The man had 53 points, 18 rebounds, and 5 blocks, which is ridiculous. But want to be even more impressed? To quote our 30 for 30 guy, what if I told you what AD did, all of that, without scoring a single three-pointer? And what if I told you that after the last NBA player with 50 blocks, I've done that several times today, by the way. If he had 50 blocks, that would have been a fantastic game. Instead, he had 50 points, 5 blocks, and the last guy to do that was David Robinson in 1994. AD was an actual baby when that happened, less than a year old, baby brow. What if I told you that last night's explosion came on the second night of a back-to-back and that the first was an away game in which AD logged a team-high 43 minutes in overtime? This is just amazing, people. There's no other way to put it. Davis has been on fire these past 6 games. Let these numbers soak in. Averaging 42 points on 54% shooting. 39% from 3, 82% from the line, where he's getting more than 12 free throw attempts a game. He's also averaging 15 rebounds, 3 blocks, 3 steals. This is crazy. And look, we should have known some version of this was coming, right? When AD and I sat down during the All-Star break, he was very open about what he felt he had to do with Boogie Cousins, now out for the season.
It goes back to AD before DeMarcus. A lot of minutes, weight of the world on your shoulders. You got to carry the team on your back. You got to almost get 40 every night for us to give us a chance to win. And it's back to that.
What is that actually like?
Yeah.
What is that like every day, over and over again?
It's tough. A lot of tough. You kind of have that Russell Westbrook mentality when KD went out. That's what y'all think about, man. Russ just went out there and played. He shot 40 shots sometimes. Whatever it takes to help your team win, and I'm kind of taking that approach.
He is, of course, talking about how Russ went crazy last year after KD went to Oakland, and we all know that the result of Russ doing that was a very shiny MVP trophy. So it is no surprise that the past 15 hours have been an avalanche of Anthony Davis is now in the MVP race takes, which sure, I guess is true, and that when the MVP is announced, they will indeed release the top 5 GOAT-getters, and it seems more certain Davis will be on that list. But barring a James Harden injury, could Davis actually win? Well, the Pelicans only have 22 more games this season. I don't know. And more importantly, does just being in the race even matter? Maybe to some people, but here's the guy I do know it doesn't matter to. Anthony Davis. Because on this, he has been very clear. He has recalled multiple times this year that he was in the MVP race in 2015. That same year, the Pelicans were swept out of the playoffs in the first round by the Warriors. And as AD remembers it, he says that was the end of anyone caring about him or what he had done that season. So this time around, the thing he is focused on, the only thing he says he is focused on, is not just keeping the Pels in a playoff seed, but getting them to a high enough seed they have a shot at advancing. To that end, take a look. Right now, New Orleans sitting in the 5th spot and just 2 games out of 3rd. Of course, we'll have to see if AD can keep all this up. It will not be easy. He is running a very tough race, and he is doing it without another superstar at his side. But everyone should just be clear on the goal he is running toward, because he is. So I got to say, despite Anthony Davis saying he doesn't care about MVP, we're still going to discuss it. And to me, I have said, Brian, I don't know, with 22 games left, he can really make a case that he would beat out James Harden. There's been so much arguing about this before the show that we are going to make Mike Miller the judge, and I'm now going to let Brian Windhorst state his case for the record, and then Mikey will rule.
Rachel, how many years have you been covering the NBA? It's been many, many years, right? We won't put a number of years on it. We just know that it is more than one decade.
Like 24,
it is more than one decade. When in all those wonderful years has anything in the NBA been over in February? Why are you declaring something over in February? If you're asking me today if James Harden is the outright frontrunner, yes, absolutely. The Rockets have been great. Harden has been great. But why can't he make a run at this? Why also, if the Pelicans finish 3rd, which is not a real possibility, I mean, yes, they're playing very well right now, and I'm not expecting them to average 42 points the rest of the way. But if they finish 3rd, which they're 2 games from right now, and by the way, the team in 3rd place, the Timberwolves just lost their best player in Jimmy Butler. If they finish in 3rd place, and he carries them down the stretch to that, without DeMarcus Cousins, with a bunch of guys like Emeka Okafor is a guy who hasn't played in 3 years. He's getting major minutes for them. If he carries his team into there, you're damn right he's going to be in the MVP conversation, in the race, however you want to frame it.
That's not the question.
That's not the question.
The question is, yes, he can. Will he
Okay,
win
make a run at MVP. Yes, if they're in 3rd place, he will make a run at MVP.
Yeah, I mean, he can make a run, but her question is, will he win the MVP? And if James Harden plays the way he plays.
What does it say on the bottom of the screen?
Make a run, but what does make a run mean? Make a run means actually has a shot to win.
Yes, the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, I disagree.
Well, he has a shot. He has a small shot. I mean, listen, he is an MVP-type player every year.
Yes.
The problem is that his team is, to your defense, his team has never been in a situation to where he's had a chance to be in the top 4, top 5. They haven't. So, with that being said, he has a chance. But James Harden just having that type of year, if they're the number 1 seed, it's over. If they're number 1 or number 2, just because of Golden State, James Harden, if he stays the way he's playing, is winning the MVP.
Yeah, I heard several ifs in there. And
I heard a lot of ifs with you, too.
I agree.
If he averages 42 and they get the top 4.
I agree. We're arguing whether it is if.
Okay, but
so that's what I'm saying.
First of all, yes, February, although we must say that February ends tomorrow and that the season is over in 6 weeks. So let's not pretend we're in the middle of the season. The season's over in 6 weeks. The Pelicans only have 22 games left. I would just say that this doesn't have to be the standard for Anthony Davis. That I think that he has this great week, right? He has this amazing couple weeks, and everyone's like, oh, it could be making a run at MVP. I don't think that unless James Harden gets hurt or somehow something crazy changes with James Harden, enough people would vote Anthony Davis MVP.
This show is founded on the principle of things crazy happening in the NBA.
Well, that's true.
So how, I mean.
And this doesn't change how good he is. I just don't think, giving the year Houston's having, I just don't see it being a chance.
Okay, I'm not putting down money. I'm just saying, what does it say? Could Anthony Davis make a run at MVP? Yes.
That means actually.
Yes.